Hello, everyone. Welcome to the I Teach PTE webinar series. It's nice to have you with us. We can see that people are joining. So just a refresher or a reminder, this is the I Teach PTE webinar series started in January. So today we are having the 5th session. We had a session on PTE essentials, so like a basic introduction. We had a session on AI, human and automated scoring. We had a session on planning PTE course and teaching PTE lessons. So if for some reason you missed one of the sessions and you think like, okay, I'd like to learn something from them, so you can watch the recording on I Teach PTE website. And today we are slowly moving into the skills-based sessions. And we start with I Teach PTE Reading. So there is 50 minutes ahead of us about reading skills and PTE reading question types. I'm going to be a co-host. Please remember that there is a Q&A button. So if you'll be listening and you have any Q&A, any questions about reading skills and about PTE and reading, just put them in the chat. By the end of the session, we'll aim to answer some of them. And welcome to our wonderful presenter, Steve O'Farrell. Enjoy the show. The floor is yours, and I'm going to be in the background. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Bartek. So just a very little brief about me. So, yeah, I'm Steve O'Farrell. I'm the Senior Learning Consultant and PT Master Trainer for the Europe, Middle East and Africa region. That's a lot of countries. So I've been around quite a long time, and I kind of consider myself the OG, the original PTE Master Trainer, because I started PTE training about 5 years ago and set up the first virtual or online PTE training course for trainers, for PTE teachers and trainers. So it's come on a long way in those few years. I've learned a huge amount myself, and I'm going to be showing you some of what we can do for the PTE reading section. Now, what follows applies equally to both PTE academic and PTE core. So just to clarify, PTE academic is the test that test takers will use to apply to academic institutions, universities, postgraduate courses, and so on. Whereas PTE core is more general life and employability situational English. Just to reinforce one point Bartek made on the question and answers, there's a Q&A box there where you can put in any questions and we'll visit them at the end. Keep the questions to the topic in mind, because today we're talking about the reading section. There will be other webinars for the writing section, speaking and writing, and for the reading section. So if you have questions about those, please note them down, but come back later to the other webinars later in the year, because we've only got time to deal with the reading section today. So with that, what are we looking at today? Well, we're going to try and achieve 3 objectives. So first one is to look at the common mistakes or challenges that test takers have with the reading section of the PTE tests. Then we're going to look at some sub-skills. So what do I mean by sub-skills? Well, we have the 4 main language skills. In PTE, speaking and writing are in part 1, reading is in part 2, and listening is in part 3. But all of those skills have many extra sub-skills that we should be teaching our test takers in order for them to enhance their ability to get the correct score. So we're going to look at those. And in part 3, I'll go through some resources that are available to help you as teachers with teaching and preparing your test takers. So, first of all, the reading section, it reflects real-world use of English. This is one of the key features of PTE as a whole. The language that is used is real-world language. Now, it is now slightly categorized as I've just mentioned, between academic, which is more the sort of university world of academia style of English, and core, which is the sort of general and workplace. But in both instances, it's real world stuff. So what does that mean in practice? Well, number one, when we use English in the real world, we seldom, sorry, pretty much never use one single skill. So, for example, when we're speaking, we're usually also listening at the same time. When we're reading, we could be doing anything. We could be listening. A good example might be watching a movie with subtitles in the same language, or listening to and reading a text simultaneously. We might also be speaking, as in reading aloud, reading a story, reading a book to somebody. So we could be combining reading and speaking. You might also be note-taking, so you could be reading, taking notes, combining reading and writing. So what this means is skills are very seldom used entirely in isolation. This is reflected by the fact that many of the question types in PTE are scored upon multiple skills, not just single skills. The texts, be they listening or reading, in our case, reading, are adapted from real-world text sources. So whether those are academic sources for PTE Academic or general or professional for PTE Core, it's kind of got that classroom alignment because many of the sub-skills required are academic sub-skills, regardless of which test people take. They need a certain set of academic skills in order to be able to perform to the best of their ability. So let's take a quick look. The question type that score for reading. Okay, remember there are integrated skills. So here we go. Here you can see all of the question types that actually contribute to the reading score. So you can notice that 2 of them are in part 1, the speaking and writing section. 2 of them are in part 3, the listening section. But for the purpose of our talk today, we're going to be looking at solely the 5 question types in the reading section. So just to go through them very briefly, we've got reading and writing fill in the blanks. So this is where you have a passage with a number of blanks, and each one has a drop-down menu from which you will choose the correct option as you deem it. Next, we have multiple choice, multiple answer. This one consists of a reading passage or text, after which you have a number of choices of answers. More than one of them will be correct. We then have reorder paragraph. In this question, you will see 2 columns. You'll see the left-hand column with a number of sentences in separate boxes. These are the sentences of the paragraph, but in the wrong order. And on the right-hand column, it's empty. You need to drag the sentences across and rearrange them into the correct order to make a logical paragraph. We then have another fill in the blanks question. This one is again a passage with a text and some blanks in there, but this time the answers are down on the bottom and it is a drag and drop style question. There will usually be slightly more possible answers than there are gaps, so there are a few extras. And finally, probably the most straightforward one, multiple choice single answer, which is simply a text with to be read, then a number of possible answers, one of which is correct. If you were to choose another one after choosing one, it will eliminate the first one and select your final choice as your answer. So whichever is your final choice, that's the one that will be submitted. Let's have a look at some common mistakes or challenges with these 5 question types, starting with fill in the blanks, reading, writing. This is the drop-down menu version. Now, one common mistake is not considering all the options. What does that mean? Basically, you have 2 ways you can do it. Okay, you can read through the text, come to the first blank, drop down, choose your answer, continue. Or you can read through, drop down, check each of the answers, put each of them in your mind and weigh up the options, and then eliminate before moving on. Now, fairly clearly, the second one is the better option. So what should we do in order to eliminate incorrect options? Well, let's have a look. To eliminate incorrect options, remember to consider the following. Consider things like the context, so the overall meaning of both the text and the sentence. How does it fit into the meaning of the passage? Locations are a great way. They're a great clue to have in your toolbox. So check the words preceding and the words following the blank, and see if they tend to commonly fit together with one of the options. So this is it's a great little clue that might be able to help you choose the correct answer. Grammar. Think about the part of speech. Is it a verb, an adjective, a noun? Does the part of speech of the option fit correctly with what it should be in the blank? So each of those are extra considerations, but crucially, the point is to consider all of the options that are there and make sure you're eliminating the incorrect ones, as well as deciding which one you believe is correct. The second common mistake is not considering the text as a whole. So we've got the full text, which has an overall meaning. So firstly, skim for meaning. Skim through the text, get the overall meaning into your mind, and that will set you up for choosing the correct options. And also, once you've filled in all of your blanks, check it again. Read again and check, does it flow correctly? This is the point where perhaps an incorrect choice might jump out at you. So always check back for the flow of your ideas. So multiple choice, multiple answer. So for this one, some people might simply open up the question, read the text, look through the answers, and start selecting. This is the suboptimal approach. Okay? There are many better ways of approaching this question. So let's have a look. First of all, before reading the text, read the question and answer options. Now, question meaning at the top, the question is the prompt. And this is where you may get some extra clues about the text and what is being sought in your answer. Then check the answers. So check through the possible answers so that by the time you're reading the text, you have your possible answers in their head. Okay, so the test taker needs to have those in their head while they're skimming, because the next step now is skimming. So by the time they're skimming, they've got an idea of what is being looked for, and they've got the possible options in their head, and now they're skimming. They can be more targeted and more productive with their skimming. And finally, you don't need to understand every word. This is another thing. It's the ability to understand a text without knowing every single word is crucial for all of the reading questions in the PTE exam. More on this later on. The other common mistake in multiple choice, multiple answer is guessing. Now, one thing here is that the potential answers might include a word that was in the text. That does not mean it is one of the correct answers. Okay, it might be, but it might just well not be. So be careful of that. Also, multiple choice, multiple answer is the one question in the exam where you can actually lose marks for an incorrect answer. So if, for example, you select a number of correct answers, but then you also select one that's actually not correct, that will actually reduce your points by 1. So be very careful. Make sure that the test takers are sure about their answer. They should not guess in this question. Multiple choice, multiple answer is not a guessing game, right? If they're not sure about it, leave it blank. At least they can't lose marks that way. Reordering the paragraph. This is one that teachers tend to like doing. There's a certain almost mathematical aspect to reordering paragraph because you can teach the stages. And crucially, the most common mistake here is not identifying the topic sentence. So every paragraph in this question type has a fairly clear topic sentence. How do we find it? Look for a sentence that contains the main idea, contains the whole of the main idea, and a sentence that stands alone. It should not be dependent upon a previous sentence supplying some of the information. It must be a sentence that stands on its own, and that will help you get which is the topic sentence. And then the main skill being tested in reorder paragraph is the ability to identify relationships between sentences, because this is where the scoring is done upon putting correct sentences together. So look for things like logical progression of ideas, or perhaps time, and devices, cohesive devices can be very helpful. Things like pronouns and determiners. So if you see the word he, then it probably follows a previous sentence that says the man or John, for example. Articles, definite articles tend to follow indefinite articles because we need to define an item or a concept before we can use a definite article. So articles can be a very good indicator of which sentence might come before or after another one. Linking phrases, first, then, as a result, consequently. Those kind of phrases can tell you that a sentence might come after something that went previously. And ways to give examples. The most obvious one being, for example, XYZ will almost certainly follow a previous sentence that gave a sort of a more general statement. Moving on to the second fill in the blanks type question. Now this one, remember, is a text with blanks and some options of words to fill in that they need to drag into the space. So, using a single method to fill in the gaps is one of the common pitfalls in this particular question. So instead, consider other things, other ways of going through. So firstly, skim the text. Skim the full text and get the overall meaning of it in your head quickly. Link meaning and grammar. So the grammar of the surrounding the space and the grammar of the word options can be helpful. And these are things like, again, parts of speech, noun, verb, adjective, etc. It might be a grammatical structure. So there might be clues around the space to tell you whether it is a simple present tense or a third conditional, something like that. And on the vocabulary side of things like collocations, prepositions, word endings, and conjugations, all of those little vocabulary lexical items might be clues. And then follow it all by considering overall main ideas and topic progression. And remember, as before, to read back through afterwards and just check, does the flow work? Now, the second common mistake is giving up on difficult gaps. So let's say you've got a number of gaps in your text and you've got words down below and you're not entirely sure of the meanings of everything. But here's the thing. Find the easier ones first. Because once you fill in the easier gaps, you're reducing the number of words to choose from. And once you've reduced that number, then it might be easier for you to start to make connections. So think of this for your test takers. Yeah, they've filled in the easy ones. Number one, they've saved some time, and number two, they've now reduced the selection, and hopefully can make their choices maybe a little bit more easily, and also make sure they can infer the meaning of unfamiliar words from context. More on this a little bit later on. The last question type is multiple choice single answer. Again, block of text, some question options, one of which is the correct option. So the first common mistake is simply not focusing on the meaning of the question, not the text, the question above, because there are often very useful clues in the question. Read it carefully. What is it looking for? Is it looking for the main message? So, in other words, what's the overall meaning of it? Is it looking for specific details? Perhaps it's looking for a year that something happened. So you're going to skim it. In fact, no, you're going to scan it this time. Is it talking about specific style? So the question might be, what is the author's perspective on something? What is the author's opinion or message? So it might be slightly different from main message. And finally, it might be about the organization and connection between ideas. So these are all the things, the sort of clues that might be available to you, the test taker, in the actual question before they jump into the meaning of the text. And the second common mistake is simply not checking your answers. Once you've made your choice, check the other ones, eliminate them. Okay, so firstly, is there clear evidence for the choice that I made? And can I check the others? Can I clearly say that one is incorrect, that one is incorrect, and sort of mark them all off so that I've got my final answer? Now, it's okay to guess in this one, because basically this is a 1 or 0. You can either select correctly and get 1 point, select incorrectly, and you've lost nothing. So it's okay to guess, but try to eliminate the other options and try and make sure you've got evidence for your own correct option. Now, here is one of the most important things your test takers or learners can do to boost their chances of success: extensive reading. Now, the opposite of extensive reading is intensive. So just to talk about, intensive is like studying. Intensive reading is where you need to learn specific content. So you'll study it, you'll read it carefully, you'll often have activities connected so that you can expand on something and learn more about it. Extensive reading is more like what we do in L1, when we want to read, well, mostly for pleasure, but also when we want to learn things. So extensive reading is where you can simply relax and read quite fluently. With extensive reading, you're not going to dictionaries and so on. So you're going to get the skill of inferring meaning from context and the kind of things we need to be reading. Academic articles like National Geographic, BBC Future, Science Daily, anything else like online, you can find theses, etc. So academic stuff, especially for the PTE academic part. Newspapers, magazines, you've got The Economist, local newspapers that have been translated into English are a great resource. Also, native English newspapers, they're all online. You can find pretty much anything around the world in terms of that kind of content. Newspapers, magazines, specific professional magazines, magazines about interests and hobbies, all of that is valid reading, especially for extensive. So, and it will broaden their language base, their vocabulary base. Now, one thing about extensive reading that people have said is that it should be not higher than the level, but ideally slightly lower than the level, which is where graded readers come in. So if our learners are sort of the intermediate or advanced, intermediate to advanced, sort of not really C2 or even high C1, sort of up to B2 plus level maybe, we want them to be able to read comfortably, because that's what extensive reading is about. So it's often recommended that we find a graded reading at just below their full level. That means that they can read it without interrupting, without going to other sources, dictionaries, etc. They can read comfortably and fluently, because that's what extensive reading is about. And a variety of topics as well as the range of materials. Those are the key. As broad as possible, and that's what will get you the language base, the vocabulary base, the knowledge base to be able to perform well in the test. So let's go in now and look at some sub-skills and strategies. So the skills are the four main languages. It's reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Okay, now we're looking at reading. What are the sub-skills to do with reading? So remember our 5 question types. Okay, we're going to go to each of these question types and look at the sub-skills that are checked in them. Starting with the reading, writing, fill the blanks. So here we are. The sub-skills are things like following a logical or chronological sequence, understanding supporting points and examples, identifying words and phrases appropriate to the context, and inferring the meaning of unfamiliar words. Now, you might notice 3 of those are in bold, okay? Keep an eye on those. We'll see what happens with those as we go through. The second question type, multi-multi. Let's see what we've got. Identifying gist or main ideas, supporting points and specific details, inferring the meaning of ideas or unfamiliar words. You see the bold ones are starting to repeat a little. You've also got identifying the writer's purpose and attitude. Academic vocabulary, that's another good one. Explicit and implicit information, classifying and categorizing, quality and usefulness of texts, and overall organization. All of those sub-skills can be required for the multi-multi. Let's look at the next one. Reorder paragraph. You should be starting to see the connections here with the bolded ones. They're very close to each other. Following a logical or chronological sequence again. Supporting points or examples. Inferring the meaning of unfamiliar words. That's obviously quite important. We've also got relationships in the text. We've got academic vocabulary again. I haven't bolded that for a specific reason. Abstract and concrete information. So these are the sub-skills for reorder paragraph. Let's check the second fill in the blank. This is the drag and drop one. Identifying the topic, theme, gist, or main ideas. Supporting points or examples. Again, inferring the meaning of unfamiliar words. Going further down, you can see bolded logical or chronological sequence again. Academic vocabulary is there again. Okay. Relations between ideas, inferences from the information, explicit and implicit info, classifying and categorizing, and Here's a new one, reading a text under timed conditions. So these are the second fill in the blanks. And finally, multi-single, identifying just main ideas, supporting points, specific details or sequences, inferring ideas or meaning of unfamiliar words. Again, we're getting common ones going through, which we're going to look at. So before that, we've also got identifying the writer's purpose, style, and attitude. Academic vocabularies are again. Inference from the information, explicit and implicit, classifying and categorizing, quality and usefulness, and overall organization. All of those in there. So by now, thinking about those bolded ones, we should be starting to see that there's a couple of sort of key groupings of sub-skills that we can focus on to really maximize things. So let's take a look at the three most important. Okay, following a logical or chronological sequence, inferring the meaning of unfamiliar words, and gist or main idea conflated with supporting points and specific details. They're the ones we're going to investigate in the next few slides. Now, I haven't put academic vocabulary here, and the reason is that's explicitly done in the books. In the courseware that can support PTE Academic, there are sections for academic vocabulary already there, sort of out in the open. So that's why I want us to focus on these so you can keep these in your mind. So let's start with logical or chronological sequence, which is in three of the question types: fill in the blanks, reorder the paragraph, and the second fill in the blanks. And this is a kind of a matrix of how you can fit into that logical chronological sequence, and cohesion is the key behind this. Making sure you know how sentences can link together with cohesive devices, relationships between sentences. So if I start off on the right-hand side, linking words and phrases, such as however. He went out the front door and closed it, and he forgot his keys. However, the back window was open and he was able to climb in and get his keys back. So we have the word however. It gives a very logical follow-on sentence there. For example, reordering paragraph, it can be very useful. On the top, we have reference words like this, it, the, one, some. So they all tend to refer to other ideas in the text. On the left, different words that are often used for the same idea or thing. So a car might be referred to as the automobile. So you might have the automobile. His new automobile had a big steering wheel and 4 shiny tires. I'll come back to that one later. And on the bottom, articles that link to previous nouns. So usually when we introduce a topic, it's indefinite. He bought a new car. The car had a steering wheel and 4 wheels. So can you see where it starts off with the indefinite introducing, and then the definite article usually follows that. So that gives us a clue as to the order of that particular piece of text. So our next one, inferring the meaning of unfamiliar words. Okay, and you can see on the left, it's in all 5 of the reading questions. So it's quite an important one. And there are 5 key steps to inferring. So, for example, identifying a part of speech. Is it a noun, verb, adjective, etc.? Look at the words around it, the words and sentences that give you sort of context for that particular word. So maybe there's a synonym or an antonym in there somewhere. Information given later might give clues, which is why it's important to skim the text, because you can find other information that might feed back. What about looking inside of the word itself for the etymology? So, for example, the word automobile. So it's got that mobile in it. We all know mobile phones, but also we might know mobile is all about movement. And autonomous or self-propelled. So an automobile, something that moves of its own volition. Could it be a car? Try a synonym. The automobile has a steering wheel and 4 shiny tires. The car has a steering wheel and 4 shiny tires. That works. So we can start to put in a synonym and see, does that match? And that might help us get the infer the meaning. So our third big one, main ideas versus supporting points. Again, it's in all 5 of the reading questions. So here we're going to do 2 things. We can either skim for just the main ideas, or we can scan for supporting points and specific details. So let's have a look at that. Skimming for just their main ideas, you're going to read the title, you're going to read the introduction, the first sentence of each paragraph, any headings or subheadings, the conclusion or summary, and what you're after is important information in here. Names, dates, unusual words, or whatever. The key to this is that you're not reading every word. You're skimming through it fast, looking for those little details that will give you the overall gist of it. Scanning, on the other hand, does something different. With scanning, you're looking for something specific, so you've got to keep that in mind. What's that word or piece of information that you're trying to find? Okay. So, eyes running quickly over the text, scanning for that piece of information. If the text, if the paragraph or sentence doesn't have it, skip it. And at the end, there's 2 ways of scanning. Normally we think top to bottom, logical way. However, you can also scan bottom to top. That gives your brain a slightly different perspective on what you're reading, and scanning from bottom to top might just spot something that you missed scanning top to bottom. So we're going to look at one more thing here now, skimming and scanning versus intensive reading, because some of the questions require intensive reading, which is reading for detail. So just to recap, skimming is speed reading and understanding topic, theme, gist, or main ideas. So an example might be, according to the text, what is the primary purpose of PTE academic? Okay, so that's looking for a general idea. And remember the question. This was the question before the text. So the question gives you information. Scanning, speed reading again, but this time specific pieces of information. For example, in what year was PTE Academic launched? So you're looking for a year. So you're going to scan it quickly. Is there a year in here somewhere? Okay. The answer, by the way, is 2009. So let's look at intensive reading. This is reading for detail. Now this is slower because you're going to go into a deeper dive. You're looking at the content, evaluating it. And you're going to look at details and supporting points. So an example question might be, how does PTE academic scoring ensure consistency across test takers? So to find the answer to that question, you're going to need intensive reading. You're going to have to go into the detail of the content. So let's take a look at some resources available to help you guys with your learners, your test takers. Okay, so there's quite a few out there. The first 2 here are courseware, or books, for want of a better word. However, they're not just print books, but they can also be obtained digitally. And they have a whole background of extra materials and resources. So what's the difference between them? Let's look. Official Guide to PTE Academic. PTE Expert. Okay? So I'm going to mix and match a little bit here. PTE Expert is in 2 levels, B1 and B2. So there's a lot of language development in this. It does an awful lot of exercises working on expanding students' academic vocabulary. It is perfectly pitched for in-class use. It can be a full academic course. There's a lot of material in it. It also has assignable activities and so on. The official guide, on the other hand, is pure task-based. So it's question type in the running order of the test, and it takes students into each question type one by one with some strategies and examples, and it's got lots of practice in the digital platform, lots of practice questions in it. So both of these can be used as either self-study or teacher-led. Official guide is probably slightly more self-study. It's also shorter. So if you've got a short course, let's say you want to do a 1 month intensive course for students who already have their language level, but just want to practice doing the question types, Official Guide is your go-to. If you're doing a longer course and your students are still developing their language level, perhaps they're at A2 plus or B1 and you want to improve them up to B2 level, Expert is a very good course book for doing both the language development as well as the test preparation. And there are other resources on the website that can help you, such as lesson plans for every exam task type. So for fill in the blanks, for reorder paragraph, there's one, for multiple choice multiple answer, there's one. There's a lesson plan for every question type that includes strategies, sample questions and answers, and justifications for those. So you can see as a teacher what's being marked and how it's evaluating sample questions and answers. So those are some great resources. There is also the Smart Prep, which is a new edition. It is available on the My PTE platform. I'll show you in a couple of moments the pathway to getting there. But what's on it? You've got a reading guided practice test. You've got 4 full guided practice tests with questions and answers, not scored. It's all about practicing and learning how to do them. And a document with reading tips. So how do you get to it? Well, basically, you need to go to My PTE. So if you've done any PTE online courses in the past, you've probably already have a My PTE account, but it's very easy to create it. So just you can Google My PTE or access it via the Pearson PTE website. And once you're in there, find Smart Prep. Have a look around the reading resources, because today is all about reading. Bookmark a few, find the ones that you like, that you think you can use with your students, and then you can actually put them together as into a document and have your students go into the website and do the specific ones that work for them. Oh, leading me to the takeaways. What 3 things do I want you guys to take away from today? So firstly, it's challenging. There are challenges about this. Both PTE Academic and PTE Core do need some training for them to do the test, to be able to tackle all of that language and skills required in order to do it well. I've shown you some of the main challenges, and just for the record, almost all of what I've shown you today has come from the Official Guide to PTE Academic, that book I mentioned a few moments ago. So it's really, really useful. Strategies, use some of the strategies I've shown you, use the courseware that's there to find strategies as well, and use the lesson plan strategies that I've just mentioned from the website. There's lots of stuff available there. Develop your own as well. And finally, get in there, use the resources, find whatever is available on the website. There's lots of it there to help you. As a quick reminder, it is Smart Prep. So for both teachers and students, there's the course book PTE Academic Expert in B1 or B2 level. There's the Official Guide to PTE Academic. And there are score guides for test takers for both PTE Academic and for PTE Core. So that takes us on to the next steps. So I'm going to pass the stage back to Bartek for this one. And
okay, so thanks a lot for the journey for the reading skills and for the journey for the reading question type. So our wonderful audience, a few bits of information. By tomorrow, you'll receive an email from Zoom with a link to the survey. So we would appreciate your comments about the webinar. Once you complete the survey, you'll be able to download your certificate. So you'll be able to put the name in it. It has editable place. And next week, we are having another webinar. Next slide, please, Steve. So this is like, for the first time, we've been doing it for the first time this year. We had 1 session so far, some time ago. It's Ask Me Anything session. So actually, it's one big PT Q&A. And if you scan the QR code, it will take you to the survey and you could ask any PT-related questions. And then when we meet next time on the 29th, there will be a panel of experts, and we'll do our best to answer, maybe not all of them, depending on the number, but majority of the questions. And of course, you'll have a chance to ask those questions live as well. So from the survey, it will help us to direct the conversation, because maybe some of the question will be focusing on a very specific area, but there will also be a chance to ask those questions live. So register for this session through the Teach PTE website. If you scan the QR code, you'll get the survey link, and we look forward to seeing you soon. If I open the Q&A, Claire, there was a question. This session is recorded, and it will be uploaded to the Teach PTE webinar website by the end of next week, I would say. So you'll have a chance to watch it again. And Steve, there's one question. I guess I'm going to complete it.
How can students who don't have enough knowledge about grammar, I suppose, do the test?
Yes.
Just simplest answer is they can't. That's one of the things that you really do need to make sure they're ready to do. So they need to have their grammar. Most people who do PTE, particularly PTE academic, are aiming for at least a B1, because that's usually what's required for university entry or postgrad or whatever. So it varies by the university, but basically their grammar must be up to that level in order to get that score. That's it. There's no shortcuts on that. You need to have the language development done.
Yeah, and I would add something, that some students might be aiming for 70 plus scores in CFR. And if you are aiming for around C1 level, at this point, grammar shouldn't be a point to discuss, because it should be so natural for you that you are able to go through the scientific articles, do the complex analysis, etc., etc. So as Steve mentioned, it's a must. Okay.
There's one here, best site for PTE practice. So the Pearson PTE website and my PTE, that's the single best source.
Yeah.
Other than that, you could think of the digital resources that are available, particularly on the official guide, because it's got a question bank of 300 practice questions across all the question types. So that's a really good one. So.
Yep, and there are some PDF tests, self-check quiz, so I would go for the official guide as well if you're preparing to study. The recorded video, Teach PTE website, this is the place where you register for all the sessions. So if you scroll down, you'll find like previous sessions, and you'll be able to watch the recording there. Okay. So I guess, Steve, that's all for today. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you for being with us. We hope that the knowledge presented will benefit your teaching style, or maybe will benefit your preparation style, because maybe you're the one thinking about taking PT Academic, or maybe you're the one teaching others to take PT Academic. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to,
There's one more question, Bartek. Yes. Just arrived. You said students need 60, but they get 50 or less. What can be done? Work, basically. But no, seriously, this is one of the webinars that's there to help you guys, to help your learners to improve. Ultimately, however, what PTE is very good at is gauging their language level, because 60 is not a score in a test. 60 is a level. It is a level that they have achieved in their language. So that's what it's doing. It's not scoring them and grading them, etc. It's actually evaluating their language level. So honestly, their level needs to go from 60, 50 up to 60. That's literally what needs to be done. But that's where things like this webinar, also the teacher trainings that we run, we have online, there are face-to-face in various places, depending on where you are. But yeah, just keep following us and learning how to improve your chances to help your learners to do that.
There was a question, where can we find books that you mentioned before? If you go to the PTE website, and you'll just find a section resources. So you'll find free resources, you'll find paid resources, you'll find the names of the books, you'll find the ISBNs there. And of course, you can always contact your local Pearson representative saying, hey, I've attended the webinar, and there was this person saying about the official guide and PTE expert, and I'd like to get access to this. So probably this is the best to have a direct access to those resources.
Indeed. Perfect.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve, for being with us. And thank you for asking all the questions.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be seeing each other quite soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Take care all. See you.